Kamaru Usman and Shavkat Rakhmonov will not be fighting each other at UFC 310. This according to Usman himself on his Pound for Pound show, revealing that it's not going to happen. And so I'm going to talk about Usman and what he has to say here. And I'll give my thoughts as well on UFC 310 because that card is not looking so hot. So let's first hear from Usman saying he will not be stepping in to fight Shavkat.
To be honest, it's a fight that I've looked at, and I know it's definitely a very, very winnable fight. And I know that I can, of all people, go out there and expose what hasn't been exposed in a young, hungry, streaky guy in Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's very talented. He's very, very good. But I do see the holes, and I think that I can exploit that when that time is right. But December 7th might be a little too early for that time.
So yeah, Usman not taking the fight. I kind of knew this was going to happen. Again, I think if Usman was to take this fight, we would have found out already. But I don't blame Usman here. I think people got to look at the context of everything because people are like, what a great opportunity for Usman. I mean, this is a guy coming off 3 straight losses. And yes, there could have been an interim title on the line and all that stuff. But I mean, is that smart for Usman at this point? Does he really want to have 4 straight losses on his resume if things don't go well against Shavkat? And you got to remember as well, Usman's trained with Shavkat before. While he's saying all these things in this video, saying that there's a lot of things he could expose, I think he also realizes how dangerous of an opponent Shavkat Rakhmonov is. So I personally think this is the right move here for Usman. It's not his fault Bilal Muhammad was out of the fight, and the UFC once again does not have a lot of options for UFC 310. So I kind of figured this was going to happen. I think even if there was an interim title or there was a lot of pay involved, I mean, Usman already did this for the UFC. He did this against Chimaev. To ask him to now do it again at the tail end of his career, to me seems like a lot. So Shavkat Rakhmonov without an opponent. I think it's safe to say right now, I don't think Shavkat's going to be fighting on this card. I really don't see who's available. I see a lot of people throwing out, different names. Let's go through some of those real quick, and then I'll talk about 310 as a whole. But I've heard people throw out, Leon Edwards. We'll start with him. Again, Leon Edwards coming off a title loss. Why would Leon Edwards then jump into a short notice opportunity against a very dangerous opponent in Shavkat and potentially lose another fight? That's not smart for Leon's career. Plus, you got the London card they just announced. I think Leon's going to fight on London. Usman's out of the equation. Sean Brady, I don't know what's going on with Brady. I think that actually is probably the fight that would make the most sense. But again, if we haven't heard about the fight yet, I'm recording this on November 14th. UFC 310's on December 7th. I highly doubt that happens. So I think there's probably something up with Brady. I've actually reached out to Brady to try and see what's going on with him, but no response back. And people keep bringing up Jack Della Maddalena. Guys, if Jack Della Maddalena was healthy, they probably would have made this fight. But it's, I don't think he is. I don't think he's cleared. I haven't heard anything about Jack returning, so people got to throw him out of the equation as well. And plus, like Jack off the long layoff, you really want to, again, have a short notice fight. Doesn't make a ton of sense. And the last one I'll mention here is Colby. Now, look, Colby it would be, just on the surface, that kind of, seems like a fight that could make sense. But do you honestly think, to the people out there who want to see Colby fight Shavkat, do you honestly think it's in the UFC's best interest to have Colby headline a card at the end of the year? Because remember, he hasn't fought since last December. And the performance he put on against Leon Edwards was not good. Do you think the UFC wants to put the fans through that again with it potentially being a bad fight? I don't think they do. Not to mention, I don't think that makes any sense for Shavkat with Colby coming off such a disappointing loss. And, is there anyone out there that would be picking Colby in that fight? I think that's a fight that would not be in his favor. And, Colby, again, needs to really bounce back in a big way. And I don't think you do that on short notice against Shavkat Rakhmonov. And, I know Colby's claimed that he's asked for the fight. I don't know if that's necessarily true either, because when Bilal was out of the fight, if Colby really wanted that fight, how come we didn't hear about it right away when Bilal was out and Colby put his hand up? We only heard it in the interview with Submission Radio. So I don't even think that was a real option, to be honest, is Colby and Shavkat. I think at this point, if Brady's not ready to go, just wait until Bilal's, healthy and do that fight, because I just don't think it's worth it for Shavkat. Now, again, Shavkat has been out for, a while too. He hasn't fought his last fight was against Wonder Boy, so he's on the shelf for a bit, but I think if you got a title shot, wait out for the title shot. I think that makes the most sense at this point in terms of what's next for Shavkat. Okay, now let's get to UFC 310 as a whole. To me, this is a disaster right now. I mean, right now, and I'm going to call it right now, and I could be wrong. The UFC's, they've pulled rabbits out of hats before, like we saw with, Khalil Roundtree and Alex Pereira. I'm going to be betting right now that they are going to stick with Pantoja and Asakura as the main event. And look, it's a title fight. People should be happy about that. But I think that in itself is a risk. Kai Asakura has not made 125 since June of 2017. I kid you not. Go look up his record. there's a chance he might miss weight for this fight. And even in that fight, he came in at 126.3. He's got to hit 125 right on the mark. So I think that in itself is a huge risk. So looking at this card as is, Gane and Volkov is going to be a good fight. That's a pay-per-view worthy fight. Ivoyev Sterling, despite what people think in terms of, the style matchup and it not being super appealing, that still is a pay-per-view worthy fight. I have no interest in Luque and Diaz. I've been very vocal about that. I could probably do a whole video on why I don't think Nick Diaz should be fighting anymore. And Smith and Reyes, I guess that's on the prelims, but I'm assuming that would get bumped up just in terms of two guys that have fought for the title. I don't mind this fight, but even then, I think that's a bit of a tough sell for a pay-per-view card. So yeah, this is the problem. And I say it time and time again, and you guys are sick of me mentioning this, but the UFC does too many events. And the reason they do too many events is because ESPN wants as much content as they possibly can. But when you do a schedule like this, you have very few options. We know Pereira's not going to come in and save the day this time. They've used all their trump cards, so to speak. They've used all, backup options possible. Unless there's something I'm not even thinking of. Like I've even heard people mention, maybe Dustin Poirier could save the day. Dustin Poirier is on the tail end of his career. He's not doing a short notice fight to save this card. I highly doubt that happens. So yeah, I don't know. I like I said, if I'm a betting man right now, I think this is going to end up being the main event. And I think the UFC is just going to have the attitude, which they've had a number of times with cards, which is, hey, people will buy it anyways, so just pay for it. But to me, that's a bit disappointing. This is a pay-per-view. They should have a couple viable options available, and they don't because, again, they have too many events going on. Too many fighters are competing. They don't have a lot of options to work with. And this is what we're going to be left with. And is this worth an $85 pay-per-view right now as is? Because again, they're probably going to bump up Smith and Reyes. I don't think it is. Like Pantoja and Askar is a fun fight, but like, I don't think that's worth the $85 or whatever it is we're paying. I don't know. That's really tough. So at the time of recording this, again, we're going to have UFC 309. I would assume we'll get some sort of announcement on what that card's going to look like. Because again, we're running out of time here. It's November 14th. This card is December 7th. Yeah, I just think their options are very slim. But like I said, the one fight we will not be getting is Shavkat Rakhmonov and Kamaru Usman. And like I said, I think the best move there for Shavkat is for him to just to wait for the Bilal fight at this point. Because like I said, like anyone he fights, like even if you brought in someone to fight him or they got a bit creative, like Shavkat probably wins that fight. Do we really even need to see that? Does he need the ring time, the cage time to do that? I don't know. I don't think it's really worth it. I think it's better if we just wait for him and Bilal to fight, get him an extra long camp. And, if Bilal's out for a while, I've said this before, then do an interim title. Maybe that's when we can revisit the Usman fight. Although, I'll say it in this video and I've said it before, I don't think Usman fights again. I just have this feeling that he's kind of at the tail end and I think he's happy doing the podcasting stuff and I don't think we'll see him return. And, I'm not saying that because he turned down this fight, but I don't really see a reason for him. He's 37. He's going to be 38 next year. He's accomplished a ton. It would have to be a good situation for him to come back. But I'm maintaining the belief that I don't think Usman fights again. And I think they'll just end up rebooking Shavkat and Bilal. And unless Bilal's out for a while, like we know he's going to be out more than a year past July, then you do him and JDM for the title vacant. That's what I would do if I was the UFC. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think they're going to do for UFC 310? Because they are running out of options here. Time is ticking, and they don't have anything right now. And what do you think they should do with Shavkat? Should he fight someone on this card? Should they wait for the Bilal fight? You let me know in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.